Welcome. You're listening to the GrowOrtho podcast presented by Hip Creative. This podcast is dedicated to those who want to stand strong in their market and be leaders in their community. Now on to the show with your host, Luke Infinger.
Hey, Lori, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today.
Thank you, Luke, for the invitation to have a Canadian on your show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, most definitely. For those listening or watching and maybe who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what it is that you now do within orthodontics.
Excellent. Well, my name is Lori William, and I'm a partner in Strategix. I've grown up in dentistry all my life, as my father was a dentist and my mother ran his practices for many years, and he bought and sold rural practices in Alberta. That being said, dentistry was in my blood. In 1992, I got into orthodontics and I started, in the clinic. And from that, I evolved into the management side, opened up orthodontic clinics with a doctor in Calgary. And my responsibility was training and onboarding the team of 28 that we had at the time. And I was also responsible for all the new patient exams, so treatment coordinating and obviously patient conversion. So that's what I loved. And, that's what made me tick every morning and get me out of bed. And you know what? I thought, hey, if I'm going to work this hard, it would be kind of neat to do this for myself. So 12, almost 13 years ago, I joined Strategix as a consultant. 2 years after that, I became a partner. And I guess I consult with orthodontic offices Canada-wide. We focus on basically, anything to increase profitability and improve systems. And that looks different for everybody. But that's the great thing about what we do is we customize that program for every individual practice.
Awesome. Thanks for that intro. And, with obviously COVID and people may be kind of sick of talking about that. I know I am, but the space did learn a lot, not only this space, but I think all of us in general, especially in relation to business. What are you seeing or observing in offices since reopening in 2020?
Well, I think I would have to agree with you, Luke. Everybody's getting a little sick and tired of the whole COVID thing and when is this going to be over? But, I guess as business owners, there's an opportunity there that we'll hopefully never have that opportunity again in terms of really taking that time, especially during the shutdown, and figuring out really how to pivot the business and to make those adjustments internally for what I guess the probable patient or the consumer or whatever however you word them in your practice, what it is that they're looking for. And I think what we've learned from that is with the utilization of technology, there's so many opportunities. And, speaking from my experience, working with the offices that really embrace some of that technology, coming back, they had record-breaking months. We thought, okay, maybe this is just a catch-up phase. Maybe this is just, we're catching up to that influx of people that wanted to come in and see an orthodontist or whatnot. But it's continued and it's really sustained itself. That's been super encouraging. But the whole virtual aspect, the whole, I guess, aligners, clear aligners, the whole in-office digital printing, I'm seeing, obviously, I think everybody's experiencing the HR and the crunch in finding people. I've also experienced a lot of offices that have just made the decision that, we're not going to be replacing these people. We're going to, with the utilization of whether it's virtual care, whether it's Zoom, whether it's dental monitoring, whatever, let's utilize some of the technology that we have access to, and let's do whatever we can, wherever we can, so that we're minimizing the visits that the patients need to make in the practice. And if I can assign a team member, a very experienced and skilled team member, to focus on those appointments, that's just going to reduce the time and the number of patients that are actually coming into the office, which has been really great to see. And it's way more efficient when you're doing it this way than in office.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of innovation and efficiencies realized through the process. Maybe let's break down and talk about some of the key differentiators you mentioned. People leveraging technology, maybe marketing different. Let's break down a few of those things, specifically like technology. And you mentioned virtual care, but What are some of the things people are doing with digital technology just to help make the office more efficient and the experience even better?
Well, I guess we can look at it as kind of a meet and greet, a meet and greet or a screening process, whether that's done through Zoom or whatnot, for those patients that are inquiring about orthodontic treatment. And, taking 10, 15 minutes to get to know these patients and what their concerns are and what they're looking for, so that as an office, we can really tap into that and take that again 10, 15 minutes outside of the office to make sure that we're aligned. So when they come into the office, they know what they're coming in for. They're coming in to get their exam and their diagnostics done and to sign the paperwork. So, those appointments now, traditionally or typically they're an hour in 90% of the orthodontic offices. I know that there's offices that are more efficient with the process, but let's just say on average, they're an hour appointment. If we pre-screened these people and we've gotten them on the same page and we know exactly what they're looking for and they're prepared, now all of a sudden we've taken those 10 exams in a day, and maybe it's 10 exams, they've all been pre-screened, so we know our conversion on those is going to be 80 to 90%, as opposed to 10 exams that don't know anything about you, that have called, and booked the typical appointment in your practice, and we're spending an hour on that, and your conversion is, let's just say 60% on the patients that are eligible for treatment, and maybe the other 30 or 40% aren't eligible. They need to go and see a perio, or they need to go, see their dentist and get some, restorative work done or whatever. So by screening that, we're going to be able to work, obviously smarter versus harder.
Yeah. And there's so many different tools, but I think the key takeaway here is just the fundamental. And with the pre-screen and even framing it, just setting the expectation. So I think that's really good. Any other technologies that you've seen as a differentiator or driver in today's climate?
Well, I guess technology from a clinical perspective is, whether it's the whole, like a virtual care, taking photos and submitting them, or if it's dental monitoring, what you can see through these, apps and programs, it's awesome. You can see if a patient is tracking, you can see if a patient is complying, you can see what their hygiene is like, not to mention the whole flip side of that in terms of an adolescent and a parent not wanting yet another battle on their hands on a day-to-day basis in terms of, did you brush your teeth? Are you wearing your elastics? Are you doing this? Because the parents, they're just as tired as the kids. And, I think that removes that whole compliance or battle factor between the parent and the child, in the sense that now we can monitor that. Now we can communicate directly with the child or with the adolescent. And we can say, hey, what's going on? I know that, or I've noticed this, this, and this, or great job. This is amazing. Your teeth look amazing. They're clean. Your aligners are fitting great. So I think there's just so many positives, no matter how you look at it. Again, not to mention that now these people don't have to come in for chair time to be told something that you can identify in minutes through just a quick conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting with dental monitoring, and that's an amazing technology. But there's also variations of that and different ways to do aligner checks, things like that. But with dental monitoring specifically, you're getting more data real time, and so you're going to have way more information than typically and traditionally with patients coming in every 8 weeks or so, whatever that looks like. A lot of orthodontists I've talked to, and I think this can be the case with any business owner, sometimes doesn't want to jump into things that they're unfamiliar with, or, maybe we don't change that. But, I think for the future, it just makes sense, especially I've heard a lot recently, we're dealing with scaling issues. We can't fit in more appointments. And it's like, hey, if you implemented something like dental monitoring, like you just mentioned, that's going to save time and possibly allow you to serve more new patients. So how have you seen that, or how do doctors and orthodontists need to be thinking about this technology and maybe trying it, testing it, and just getting acclimated to it?
Right. And, I guess the approach that I would take on that is maybe we start with something a little bit more basic. So let's just assume it's an aligner patient, whatever that looks like in your office. And I don't know what their patient flow is and the workflow there is for appointments. But let's assume that patient comes in today and they get their initial aligners and their attachments and whatever that's going to look like for that individual. So I would say on average, most offices are getting those patients back in 8 to 10 weeks for a check. So my recommendation would be, okay, let's just try to push the envelope a little bit on this. Let's in 8 to 10 weeks, if that's what you're comfortable with, let's schedule an appointment for that patient, but let's schedule that appointment virtually. And whether that's submitting photos, whether that's just scheduling a Zoom consult with the patient and getting the patient up close to the camera, and, with the aligners in and the aligners out, it's amazing what you can see. We know the old concept of just using some spoons so that we can pull the cheeks out away and get, an idea of how everything's fitting and what the bite looks like. But if we can get the doctor's head just wrapped around, okay, so that first appointment that is typically in the office, if we can do that online and then schedule that patient back in 8 to 10 weeks, let's just keep the math really simple that you're starting 10 aligner patients every month. So you have 10 aligner patients. We've just eliminated 10 appointments coming back into the office in 8 to 10 weeks. So now that appointment is going to be done in, I guess we multiply that, so 16 to 20 weeks. And the patient's happy because they don't have to come into the office. You're happy because for the most part, your clinical team can handle those appointments. You don't even need to be involved. And the patient is feeling that they're getting the value because somebody is paying attention to them. And if in between that, somebody's reaching out to them and just touching base with them in terms of, hey, Luke, how's your treatment going? Do you have any questions? Is there anything that I can do to help you? I mean, they're even going to feel more loved.
Yeah. And I think it's extremely important for one of the main growing demographics in orthodontics, people like myself, young adults. We want everything now. We're all about convenience. We don't really want to go into places if we don't have to. There's a tool out there, Rhinogram, and this isn't a plug for them, but I'm pretty close with the founder, Dr. Keith Dressler, and I've been to visit him a few times, and we'll be having dinner or just chit-chatting, and he's literally doing aligner checks on his phone with his app Rhinogram and able to see progress there and get back to the patient, schedule an appointment if needed. It's funny, I'm a bad patient in Invisalign. I don't wear my trays like I should. But my orthodontist just reached out about an appointment, and I said, hey, because I know they're a Rhinogram user, can I just send in some photos and save time and not have to come in for a visit? And they said, yeah, just send us these images back. So I think it's things like that. It's just saving everybody time. And I think also specifically young adults are looking at it as a better experience. Mm-hmm. What about online marketing just as differentiators post-pandemic? Like, what have you seen? Obviously, marketing what we're talking about, technology, virtual consultations. Speak about that a little bit and maybe other marketing as well that you've seen successful.
Well, Luke, this is kind of your domain and this is your expertise. So I don't want to step on your toes, and you're way more educated in this, but I am going to say that offices need to have a digital marketing plan. Right now, what is everybody doing? They're all on their computers, they're all on their phones, they're taking their mental break and going and refilling their coffee. And before they get back to whatever it was that they're working on, they're taking their 5 minutes to go and scroll. So if you don't have something online with a digital marketing presence, you are completely you're missing the boat if you're looking for new patients, because that's how that's how the consumer is searching for you. That's what they're looking for. It's not in newspaper. It's not, absolutely, like newspaper can be a component or, one of the activities or one of the methods of getting your message out there. Maybe it's mail outs, maybe I am seeing mail outs coming back. Mm-hmm. Word of mouth. You've got to be, when these people are in your office and they're having a great experience, you have got to get them or ask them to share that experience. And I get the pushback all the time. What are you talking about? I'm not a salesperson. I'm not asking patients to do that. I'm like, why not? They have just told you 3 times how amazing this experience has been for them. And you're not going to ask them to share that with everybody else. You're like, that's a huge opportunity, and it's a huge missed opportunity. Not to mention the referrals that these people know. They come in and they have a solid plan, and they, let's just assume they're a teacher. They work with how many other teachers in their school that are searching for, a better smile, a nicer smile. Well, you know what? Other teachers, you have been fantastic. Send them our way. We would love to see more people like you. This is the low-hanging fruit in so many offices. And I just don't see people, utilizing that opportunity. They all have this fear, or they're all scared, to ask something. They think that they're too salesy, that they're too pushy, but there's a reason these people are here. And I mean, you need to ask for the business. You need to ask for the referral for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings up a good point. And, with marketing, I think a lot of people obviously think about Facebook and Instagram and social, and really that breaks down into 2 different things. You've got your paid ad strategy, which is probably working with someone like HIP to run that. But then you have the organic side, and a lot of times that's overlooked, or people say, well, we're going to try and automate this or streamline it. But you mentioned a really good point, sharing happy patients. And that's one thing that you can do that's easy, because every office, for the most part, has happy patients coming in every single day. And I'll share a resource, in video form for a while, and we just had this broken down into an ebook. But I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about, is even outside of Google reviews, using video testimonials. And we've gotten pushback too, trained offices on how to do this, even done it on location. But it's really simple. It's like, you have a happy patient come in. Hey, we'd love to get more patients just like you. Do you mind if we record a short video testimonial and just ask them? In this case, this is a screenshot from Dr. Jennifer. What do you love about Dr. Jennifer? What do you love in regards to your treatment and coming in to see Dr. Jennifer? And just let them share. And, that's a great way if you're doing that 3-5 times a week. Odds are your competitor isn't, and so that's going to have a compounding effect and just get more and more organic engagement, and it's free. So I think offices need some type of community, local, organic strategy, and then to work with someone else on the things maybe they can't do that are website, Facebook ads, Google ads, SEO. But that's kind of the best combo we've seen, is when offices instill the right processes. And certainly we have a lot of training that we can give them. But the organic side definitely doesn't need to be overlooked, and getting integrated into the community can't be overlooked either if you want to grow, quickly and effectively. So
I agree.
in your opinion, what are some of the main drivers for successful practices in today's climate? Like, and maybe even share some success stories around what we're talking about, and maybe even, payment options or leadership, org chart. Just what are some of the main things that you see with the practices that you work with that separate the top successful practices from maybe all the others?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. There's so many factors. I would say the one thing is just timeliness, like getting, being responsive to these, probable patients or people that are sourcing orthodontic treatment, and getting back to them timely and getting them in. I go into offices and this is common, where the doctors are quite proud of themselves because they're booked 8 weeks out for a new patient exam. And that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Whether if you're seeing, let's say, 8 exams a day and you're booked 8 weeks out, well, that's great. You have a solid reputation there. But, I asked the doctor, I said, so if you were looking for something, say you had your heart set on your brand new Tesla, and you go into the Tesla dealership and you finally made that decision that this is what you want. And you go into the Tesla dealership and they tell you, okay, well, I have a white one here that you can take right now, but I know that you want the black one, but the black one's going to take 6 months. Like, I say to the doctor, so what are you going to do? Are you going to take the white one that you can have now, or are you going to wait the 6 months for the black that you've always wanted? And, I said, if we could flip that from an orthodontic perspective, these people just didn't wake up in the morning and decide, today I'm going to go and get a consultation for orthodontic treatment. No, they've been thinking about this. They've been processing. They've been doing their research. So when they finally reach out to your office, however that is, and the person that answers the phone says, yeah, I can get you in the end of April. They're like, the end of April? I'm like hoping that, this tooth is already fixed by the end of April. So we need to revisit that whole process in your practice. And again, that's why I think the screenings or the meet and greets or the whatever you want to call it would be so helpful, so that we can take those 8 patients a day that you're seeing. We could double that to 16 patients a day very easily, because they've already had a meet and greet. They've already had that opportunity for you to know exactly what they're looking for. So now we know whether or not they're ready to proceed. So now all of a sudden we've gone from 8 weeks of a waiting list to 4 weeks, and we can get these people in. So that would be a huge opportunity to me, not to mention your team. And I know that you're big on this, Luke, but it's that need for speed. You have got to have that desire to get these people in and be responsive to these people as soon as they inquire, like ASAP. And I know that there's studies out there that say, like, if you get in touch with these patients within the first hour that they've reached out, like, they are 300 times more likely to proceed with treatment. So that is a huge stat. And I come into offices and they're like, they'll pull out their folder and all the referrals will be in there. And on the top right-hand corner, they'll have, February 7th left message on voicemail, and then they'll initial it, and that's their process. And I'll say, okay, so when are you calling them back? Oh, whenever I get to it. How many times are you phoning them back? Probably twice. And then what are you doing? I'm shredding it because they're not interested. And I'm like, okay, give me that folder and I'll take that to an office that's going to do something about it. And that is just persistence. And people say, well, we can't be too persistent because we're being too salesy. Well, you keep being persistent until you get a no. I am absolutely not interested. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Because they reached out to you, for a reason. And that segues into the whole, you commented on leadership, through COVID, the doctors that were on top of this and communicating with their teams in terms of what that return to work process was going to look like and what they could expect, and, communicating with them the PPE that they were going to have, on site to protect their safety, their patient safety, their family safety, everything. Those doctors that are strong leaders in terms of communicating what the expectations are of each and every task in that practice, or having somebody that does communicate those messages and then follows up with the team, holds them accountable, and sets timely, deadlines. Those are the offices that are taking that folder and following up over and over and over and getting on the phone as soon as that lead comes in within the first hour, because this is your job. This is the expectation. This is what we have to do if we want to take our practice from here to here. And everybody has to play a part. So, I guess that's a long answer to say just timeliness and follow through with that with the patients. Flexible payment plans, absolutely. The days of 25 to 35% as an initial payment because that's where all my costs are, those are gone. Like, long gone. If you are not making this affordable for your patients, they will go and find an office that will. And they're everywhere. So, you need to adapt. Hours. I hate to say this to the doctors that have spent 11 years in school, because I completely respect the level of, the commitment and the dedication and the years that you have spent getting where you are. But the reality is orthodontics is no longer 8 to 4. People want convenience. When you survey patients, which over the years we have surveyed thousands and thousands of patients, that is one of the things that they're looking for. They're looking for convenience. They're looking for convenience when they're choosing an office to do business with. And when you ask them what convenience means, they're saying hours, they're saying location, they're saying parking, they're saying flexible payment plan. So if we're asking the patients these questions in terms of what they're looking for, with that information, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue working 8 to 4 and be happy with that when we know that the 3 people that I just followed up with want a 5 o'clock appointment, or, think that their child's going to be the next Einstein, so they can't miss any school. Whatever the reason, those are some of the opportunities that all contribute to growth.
Yeah, and if I can also, to go back to just speed, there's several people who follow this. It's not like we created the 72-hour rule, but we do teach on it. And some of the things that you mentioned is speed to lead, which we've always talked about. And this is showing the Harvard Business Review in this study and the difference between 5 minutes to 10 minutes and the drop off there. And then the drop off with persistence, because we find that a lot of offices only follow up one time. But what we've seen that's possibly even more important than speed to lead is just how quickly the patient can be seen. Like you mentioned, if you can't offer something, they'll probably, especially in my age range, they'll find someone who can. And I even think this is why some people go with DIYers. They instantly kind of get them in, so to speak. But this is just a simple shift that we like offices to implement on the new patient call. And it's just about leading them. When would you like to come in tomorrow? Or when would you like to come in this week? Now, if you are booked out, like you're saying, with leveraging virtual technology, just jump to that. Hey, we can get the process started today. Send us some photos. And that way you can kind of get the ball rolling, because when you start to establish that relationship with that patient and build rapport, they're going to continue, in most cases, to communicate with you because that experience is there. But I mean, there's a drastic difference from practices who implement this and practices who don't. This is after 3 weeks. This is after 3 months. And then with practices who don't have a process around this, and booked out, this is what we're seeing with digital leads specifically, which is, far less. And so this is one of the reasons why we're developing so much education around this, is just to show people what's possible, and try and help them wherever we can. So just kind of moving on and maybe even kind of wrapping up, what's the future of orthodontics look like?
That's, yeah. I mean, if we all had a crystal ball, I have 3 kids, and if one of my kids said to me, you know what, Mom, I want to be an orthodontist, I would be thrilled. I would be like, fantastic. Let's make this happen. Wow, this is great. Because I truly believe, I've been in the profession now almost 30 years, and I truly believe it's amazing. Now, is it going to be different? Yes, it's going to be different than when it was when I started, even where it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We just look at, for example, the iTero scanner and how that has completely, changed the entire profession, just with, taking the scan and no need for impressions and just, printing and all of that. So, but where is it? When I'm talking to orthodontists now that are looking at doing a build out, if they're doing a startup, I'm finding that they're more interested in the whole, let's just go small. Let's keep that overhead, let's keep that overhead in check. Small team, small clinic. I'm seeing that they are wanting to do more aligners, less fixed, which, will help with, obviously, if they're going to go with a smaller space, then, that can work. And the reality is your space isn't maximized until it's open 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. People think, oh, my 8 to 4, I'm slammed. Well, you know what are we doing with the other, 3 days or 4 days a week that you're not seeing patients? So, not storing, it's not being used as a storage facility for aligners. Just give everybody their boxes and say, you're in charge. And when you come into the office for your appointments, this is what you're going to bring. I'm seeing reception areas or waiting areas for patients a lot smaller. I think the whole pandemic allowed us to see we don't need these, 600 square foot reception areas with all these gaming stations and amenities for patients, because now they're showing up for their appointment. They're calling from their card. They're saying that we're here. They're coming in and they're going right into their suite or their op. I guess that's the other thing I'm seeing is now maybe not quite the open bay concept, more individualized private suites for the patient, so that the patient is feeling that they're not so exposed in the open, and in that it's a little safer. That's what I'm seeing. I think, as you indicated, I think the do-it-yourself aligner programs, I don't think those are going away. I think those are here to stay. There's absolutely a market for that. If you research those do-it-yourself aligner companies, they're marketing to the very educated person, the person that's making over $100,000 a year. So they're targeting very specifically in terms of who they're marketing. And these people are educated, and they're still making the decision to go with this option. So, is that a convenience thing? Is it a price point thing? Like, what is it that is making these people say yes to these treatments that are being done without the guidance of, an orthodontist? So again, I still think orthodontics is amazing. I do think that the whole pandemic has allowed us an opportunity to look at things a little bit differently. And I guess that would be what I'm seeing from doctors that are looking right now at starting up an office.
Yeah, that's interesting, just kind of bringing that up. And I'll tell a short story. A rep of a large orthodontic company wanted to see what the experience was with the DIYer. And he was in an area where they actually had a brick and mortar location, went in, and the sales process was so good. At the end of it, he's like, man, am I going to start? Even knowing he wasn't going to, but just being there. And sales is kind of a dirty word. It can be, especially in relationship to healthcare. But I think it really goes back to it's all about perspective. And if you can't sell them, you can't help them.
Right.
And by and large, orthodontists are embracing that, but there's some who really aren't, and some who think it's unethical. Even, marketing, relatively speaking, it's fairly new to dentistry and to orthodontics. Mm-hmm. So I think you can still have those ethics, still have those ways of practicing, but you do have to shift, and you do have to really think about the experience and that sales process, which is really just the new patient journey. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. So if listeners have questions or they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. You can send me a text. I'm Canadian, so 403-703-9250. You can email or go to our website, which is www.strategix, strategix-ltd.com. And my email's right there. You're more than welcome to visit us, to email, to call, whatever works. It's, we do make ourselves as available as we possibly can. I just wanted to add a quick story about that, expand on that, because this is a fun story. I had a doctor that bought an A&W. And so the drive-through for the A&W, she actually converted it into a aligner pickup. So it's not a huge thing, and it's not going to become an everyday thing, but when we were brainstorming about the practice, we're like, oh my goodness, the drive-through needs to be the drive-through for your aligner pickup. So the patient comes through the drive-through, they pick up their aligner boxes in their bag, and away they go. Or you're coming by the office and you need a receipt, or you need, they're coming and they're picking up floss threaders or wax or whatever it is. Well, I'll just see you at the drive-through and you can come by and pick it up. So it's just been, a really fun spin on, how things have changed and how things have evolved. And it's just kind of neat.
Yeah, that kind of gets me thinking about marketing and the fun ways of marketing that. I love unique things like that just totally set apart the marketing strategy and the branding for the practice. So that's a cool story.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Cool. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. Really appreciate it. And I know listeners are going to find this information helpful. So thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Luke, and have a great day.
You too.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about improving your healthcare marketing, day-to-day operations, and standing strong in your market, send us an email at hello@hipcreativeinc.com. That's hello@hipcreativeinc.com. Or jump over to our website at hip.agency.